In today's corporate world, where deadlines stretch endlessly and performance is measured with cold precision, a silent crisis has been unfolding. Workers everywhere are battling burnout, anxiety, depression, and the feeling that their lives are slipping further out of their own control. For years, companies have attempted to address these issues with workplace wellness programs, mindfulness sessions during lunch breaks, subsidized gym memberships, internal resilience training workshops, and access to corporate therapy hotlines. On the surface, these initiatives look progressive, like thoughtful gestures from employers who care. Yet, beneath the glossy brochures and HR campaigns, a more complicated truth is hiding. Corporate wellness programs are rarely about your well-being. They are about control. They are about monitoring, measuring, and sometimes even manipulating the very people they claim to support. That is why the idea of a truly secret therapy app feels so radical. Imagine a tool that allows you to care for your mental health without your employer ever knowing. An app that doesn't ask for your company email, doesn't feed anonymized usage reports back to HR, and doesn't fold your most private struggles into a spreadsheet where management can quietly analyze patterns. This kind of app offers freedom, and freedom in the workplace is far more threatening to employers than stress itself. When you use therapy tools beyond their reach, you take back ownership of your mind, your time, and your personal story. And that's exactly why some companies might rather you never knew such apps existed. The truth is, these apps are not fantasy. They exist, and they are widely available. BetterHelp is one of the most well-known examples, connecting millions of users to licensed therapists through secure chat, voice, or video. It operates entirely outside the workplace, and though it isn't perfect, it has given people a way to talk about their deepest struggles without attaching their sessions to a corporate wellness portal. Similarly, Talkspace has become a household name, offering therapy that fits into people's daily routines, whether that means texting a counselor between meetings or scheduling weekly live sessions. Apps like 7 Cups go even further by connecting people with trained listeners and community support, offering relief in moments of loneliness or crisis when professional therapy feels out of reach. Even meditation and mindfulness apps like Headspace and Calm, though not substitutes for therapy, create safe private routines for workers who want to recharge without reporting their mental state to HR. These tools stand in stark contrast to the programs companies often provide. When an employer gives you access to a wellness platform, they almost always gain something in return, whether it's aggregate data about workforce mood trends, participation metrics that reveal who's engaged and who is not, or simply the ability to claim they're addressing mental health while avoiding deeper structural change. Picture an employee who regularly checks in on a corporate mood tracker, consistently reporting exhaustion or disengagement. Even if the data is technically anonymous, in small teams, it is not difficult for management to make connections. Suddenly, that worker's private struggle becomes an unspoken mark against them, a factor in decisions about promotions, project assignments, or even layoffs. Now imagine the same worker using BetterHelp or Talkspace privately on their own phone. There are no mood dashboards for managers to browse. There are no participation scores to rank employees against one another. There is only the worker, their therapist, and a secure conversation that belongs entirely to them. That separation, that autonomy, terrifies some employers because it means they can no longer claim ownership of the narrative. They cannot control the flow of information. They cannot intervene to protect their culture of silence. They cannot use wellness as a tool of discipline.
The irony is that employers often market their own wellness offerings as safe or anonymous, but history tells us otherwise. In one case, a large tech firm proudly rolled out an internal wellness check-in portal. Participation was optional, but employees soon realized that the aggregated reports were being used to identify struggling teams. Those teams then found themselves under harsher performance reviews and restructuring. What was presented as an act of compassion turned into a mechanism of surveillance. In another case, a benefits vendor suffered a data breach that exposed the usage logs of employees seeking counseling. The breach didn't reveal the exact content of sessions, but timestamps alone were enough for some coworkers to piece together who might have been struggling. Far from feeling supported, employees felt betrayed. It is no wonder, then, that independent therapy apps feel like a lifeline. They allow people to sidestep this web of corporate oversight and finally speak openly about their lives. They allow workers to confront the emotional cost of long hours, toxic management, or unfair pay without worrying that their honesty will be weaponized against them. They allow healing without fear. And that is what makes them dangerous, not to you, but to the systems that profit from your silence. Yet secrecy alone is not enough. For these apps to truly empower workers, they must uphold strict standards of privacy and security. Encryption must be real, not just a marketing promise. Identity requirements must be minimal, so users can create accounts without exposing their workplace information. Metadata must be handled with care, because even patterns of use can be revealing. And above all, they must operate independently of corporate influence, resisting the temptation to sell out to employers who might want to sponsor services in exchange for access to anonymized insights. This is why many people turn to services like BetterHelp and Talkspace in their personal capacity, paying out of pocket rather than through employer plans, even if that means shouldering the costs themselves. The price of independence is often worth it. Of course, critics point out that therapy apps have their flaws. There are debates about the quality of care, the risks of relying too heavily on digital communication, and the ethics of scaling therapy into a subscription model. Some users complain about high turnover among therapists, inconsistent quality, or the impersonal nature of text-based counseling. These are real concerns, and they highlight the need for careful research before choosing an app. But none of these concerns negate the central truth. Independent therapy platforms give you something corporate wellness never can: control over your own narrative. For workers who cannot afford full-time therapy, even community-driven platforms like 7Cups or guided programs like MoodFit and Sunvelo offer valuable tools. They provide coping strategies, journaling features, and spaces for reflection that can be accessed anytime without oversight. Meditation and mindfulness apps like Headspace and Calm, while not a replacement for therapy, help users create daily rituals of peace. These habits may seem small, but in a culture that demands constant availability and productivity, carving out private space for your mind is an act of quiet rebellion. The bigger picture here is about sovereignty. Who owns your mental space? Who gets to define what wellness looks like? When companies hand you a wellness app, they are often saying, take care of yourself, but do it in a way that we can see, measure, and use. When you choose your own app, outside their ecosystem, you are saying, my well-being is not a line item on your spreadsheet. It belongs to me. That shift is profound. It changes how workers perceive themselves, how they resist toxic environments, and how they find the courage to demand change. There's also an ethical dimension. Employers who resist external therapy tools are not only clinging to power, they are often perpetuating systems that caused harm in the first place. No meditation break can erase the damage of understaffing. No mood survey can solve the stress of unpaid overtime. No corporate wellness program can undo the effects of a manager who bullies their team. True wellness requires structural change, fair pay, reasonable hours, humane leadership, and respect for boundaries. Independent therapy apps do not fix those issues either, but they at least provide a space where workers can confront them honestly and begin to build resilience. They create a safe room in the mind away from the noise of corporate PR. In the end, the secret therapy app employers don't want you to use is not really a single product. It is a symbol. It represents any tool that lets workers take back their mental autonomy. It represents the refusal to let companies dictate the terms of your healing. It represents the quiet, powerful act of saying, my mind is my own, and no employer gets to trespass here. Whether you use BetterHelp, Talkspace, 7Cups, Headspace, Calm, or any of the dozens of alternatives emerging in this digital age, what matters most is that you do it for yourself, not for the metrics on someone else's dashboard. So as you think about your own mental health journey, remember this. Wellness is not a perk. It is not a performance indicator. It is not a line in your contract. It is your birthright as a human being. Employers may prefer you to stay within their systems, where they can watch and measure. But the most powerful step you can take is to step outside, find a safe and private tool, and claim your own healing. Because in the end, your mental health is not just about surviving your job. It is about reclaiming your life.
Did you enjoy the video? Subscribe to our channel, Health and Wellness for All, for more tips and information. See you soon.